We are here with PJ, who is the founder of the Little Red Dog, who we're going to be talking about, getting into all the details of how they were founded, their mission, and all the good that they're doing in their community. So, PJ, first question, I want you to tell me how this started. You're the founder, you got it going from ground zero. How did it all start, and kind of take us through that timeline?
So it's interesting because I found myself, had a consulting business. And I kind of found myself in between projects, and I really wanted to volunteer. And I reached out to a bunch of different dog rescues, and they either didn't get back to you, or it was just nothing ever happened. And I'm kind of a person where I just want things to happen, right? I like forward progress. So I was doing things like transporting, I don't know, just lots of things like that. And I decided, I'd read the book Lost Dogs by Jim Goranson, who's a Sports Illustrated writer. And it was about the Michael Vick case. And obviously it was very sad. And it opened my eyes to a lot of things. And I just decided, I can start it. If no one really wants my help, I'll just start it and we'll save some dogs. And, initially I wanted to say we were only going to save pit bull dogs. But we recognize very quickly the great need for all breeds, and it's only gotten worse. But anyway, that was like towards the end of 2011. So it's been in our 13th year, and
Wow,
we've saved over 6,000 dogs. And yes, when I started it, we only had the desire to make the world a better place and family as volunteers. So it was a very humble beginning.
That is so. How many volunteers do you have now? Do you know, or is it like?
Yeah, we probably have 150 to 200 volunteers. Now, that's when we do big events because we can pull them in. Probably day to day, we have about 75 very committed people who are walking dogs or fostering and things like that.
Awesome. So for the Little Red Dog, and you're rescuing dogs now, are you bringing them to other shelters, or do you guys have a brick and mortar location, or is it really just relocating from kill shelters to a safer place?
So all of the above. So when we started out, we always wanted to have our own facility, and we spent 10 years as a volunteer only organization. And the amount of work that we got done just with volunteers who had very busy lives was just incredible. I can't even believe how passionate the people were. But, for all nonprofits, the last couple of years have been tough for dog rescues in particular, because after the pandemic, everybody thinks it's great and everything's better, and we're open and we can travel, but that means that a lot of dogs are being surrendered because people want to go back to that pandemic life.
Yeah.
So we do rescue from high kill shelters, and we rescue from all shelters. So I always say we rescue all the dogs we rescue are from a bad place, right? Either they've been abandoned, the owner no longer wants them. Lots of shelter dogs. And then we rehab them physically, mentally and physically, and training behaviorally, and then find them new homes. We did open our own facility last year. We're still trying to get that ramped up, but we do have our rescue dogs there, and it's helped us, right? Because now we have a central place where people can volunteer, right? We can train them. We didn't have that for 10 years, but we did so much even without that. So I know we'll be able to save even more now that we have a
right. And then where's the brick and mortar location? Where is that located?
It's in Anaheim, California. So,
okay.
So we're still building it out. We are going to be offering, we do offer training for either own dogs as well, or if a rescue has a dog that needs some help. So we have different programs that way, but so it's currently in Orange County.
When it comes to rescuing dogs and kill shelters and a couple other like nonprofit animal sanctuaries I've talked to, it's like, there's a lot of people online that are like, hey, there's this dog that needs to be rescued. But how do you structure like a rescue mission, if you will, or how do you pick and choose where you're going? Because like you said, it's a huge problem with kill shelters and animals that have a set limited amount of time. So how do you structure something like that?
It's a really good question, because since the pandemic, because this is where we are, right? There was already a problem before the pandemic, and California has since I remember, has ranked second in euthanasia in the US, right? For animals that are just simply because they're homeless, not because there's anything else wrong with them. So it's hard to pick and choose, really hard, because even before the pandemic, there were a lot of good dogs, healthy dogs, well-behaved dogs that were being put to sleep just because they were homeless. And it's worse now. It's way worse now. And the problem is that dog rescues like ours, we're kind of a medium size. There's probably bigger ones, but they don't take as many dogs, right? I think we have like 140 dogs right now in our rescue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, a lot of the bigger ones will take like 50 or 60 dogs. And that's where I feel comfortable. But, you see these dogs and you just want to help. And that's the thing. So I get pleas. I'm not joking. It's not an exaggeration. I get about 100 pleas a day from various, sometimes they're called networkers. These are people who just kind of look at the euthanasia list and like alert rescues. Sometimes the shelter themselves will reach out to us. Like, we have this really good boy. This is the last day. Is there any way? Or sometimes we have a bomb and 9 puppies. Can you take them? So, so it comes down to, especially before the facility, did we have a foster? Because if you don't have a foster, it's really hard. You can put them in a boarding, but then they tend to stay there. And so, so that's not ideal. So, we look to see if we have a foster who could take this dog. We look to see if we have, if the dog is having a training, behavioral issue. Is that something that we can handle? We can handle most. We've gotten really good at dog behavior over the last 12 years, but yeah, so we just look at that. And honestly, sometimes it really comes down to money. Like, do we have enough money in the bank to fix the dog? Is it, it has a broken leg? Is it going to need a $5,000 surgery? So it really, all looking at those factors. I'll tell you, I'm probably the worst because I don't adhere to all those factors. If I see a dog and I just fall in love with it, I see its face and I know it's in peril, I'm probably going to rescue it.
Right.
That's what we want to do. So that's our.
That is it. I feel the same way. Like, in terms of like, and you're the one that founded it, right? You started this. So it's like, how do you say no? Because it's like, and also the whole thing behind like thinking about, there's some situations where they're homeless. There's some, like, a lot where they're mistreated. My dog, all of my animals have been from rescues. And my dog, she's a boxer lab mix. She's just like a 90-pound like sweetheart. And she was found chained up, and her collar was embedded into her neck. Because I'm assuming, like, when she was a puppy, they just never changed it. She grew. So she has a huge scar around her neck. She's super, and it just like, it breaks my heart because it's like, how do, and this, but also on the side of, we have people like you that are like doing things like that. And so I guess my next question is it strictly just in the area of California, or do you get calls from like New York City where they're like, we need your help, no one will take it? Like, so what's the reach there?
Well, we haven't taken any from New York City, but I certainly would. It's one of my favorite places in the world. But, we've rescued from, what I say is all the way up to like Fresno, all the way down to really Mexico. I mean, as bad as it is here, it's pretty bad there, especially with diseases and stuff, because there's no one's vaccinating. I shouldn't say no one. Very few dogs are vaccinated down there. But yeah, so, and we had a partnership through the pandemic that we kind of stopped it, not for any other reason. We love them. It's a place called Rescue Pet Movement, or RPM, from Houston, and Texas is the number 1 state for euthanasia. So
I was going to ask.
They had a lot of trouble getting, again, same good dogs, really good dogs. And where in Southern California, for the most part, we see a lot of what people call pit bulls, pitties, American Staffordshire Terriers. That's a large part of what's being euthanized, right? Just big dogs, mixed breeds. I see a lot of German Shepherds, but it's interesting because they have that there too. But little dogs, cute, fluffy dogs, they're all being euthanized because there's just not enough people to adopt them. So we were working with them and took a lot of dogs out of Texas, probably for a couple of years, probably 1,000 dogs out of there. So again, we're not really, we're more regional, in California, but we certainly do try to serve anywhere we can. Everywhere is terrible if you're a dog, in my opinion, and a cat. I mean, cats probably have it worse because there's just more of them. They have more frequent litters. And so, just, you'll see them, in colonies or whatever that people feed and do TNR.
Right.
I'm rambling. Sorry.
No, I think, and this is just like, we can, if you don't have an answer for this, is okay. I'm just thinking as we're talking, and my dog is like now revving up the snoring. She's living her best life over there. Do you think, or do you have like a hypothesis of why there are so many dogs in shelters? Is it like people, is it just like overpopulation, or is it like there are just a lot of people that, like, I call it like the pandemic puppy? Like, so many people get, I mean, it's, everyone knows, gets it, and they don't realize that it's like a 12 to 15-year commitment financially, you know, they don't think about it. Like, what's your thought, or do you have a thought as to why there are so many dogs in this in between in shelters?
It is, like everything, it's a variety of reasons, and it's been exacerbated over the years. It's interesting to me. I don't really have a full handle on why Southern California, because even compared to like Northern California, Southern California seems to be worse. And I talk to rescues up there and they'll say, yeah, we don't have the problem you have down there. Now, this was pre-pandemic, so I don't know if that's still the case, but because after that, everybody is full. But to your point, sometimes people just get really excited over a puppy, right? That's why I'm not a big fan of puppies for birthdays and Christmas, because it's like you said, it's a commitment. It's a huge responsibility, and you need to do it right. Otherwise, you're going to have issues, right?
Right.
So I think sometimes people get excited over puppies, and then all of a sudden, when the puppy gets a little bigger and they can't carry it around, and it's not, it's pooping all over because it hasn't done, you haven't trained
Right.
it or whatever. Then they just don't want to deal with it. And so most of the dogs in the shelters, and again, there's plenty that are different than this, but the majority of the dogs that we rescue and that are available in the shelters are probably like 1 to 3 or 4 years old. And that's that time between like 18 and 36 months in a dog's life. Their brain changes, a lot of things go on. So again, if you haven't had a really good foundation, which most people don't take the time to do,
right,
you're going to have issues. And then, it just depends on your level of commitment, right? Because there's vet care, there's lots of things that are involved with that. So sometimes, people are just hurting and they can't afford something. And I get that, and they reach out to us. If we can, we will help with vet care or training, whatever. Sometimes you're just in a position where you have to choose.
Right.
Can I see my kids, or do I, take my dog to the vet? So there's that. So there's not all people suck. There's just some people don't really think about the responsibility. And I think that's the biggest thing. And the biggest thing I would ever tell anybody, if you're going to get a dog, plan to walk that dog twice a day, every day for 30 minutes, both times, until it's gone, because that is the number one way to get your dog to connect with you, to listen to you, to set you up as a pack leader. So there's a lot of things you can do, but most people don't know that. Again, they just see the cute puppy. And I can tell you, it's very different now, because when we started, even 5 or 6 years ago, it was very rare to see like purebreds. There were some, but then there's a lot of purebred rescues, right? Like English bulldogs or French bulldogs. Well, all of a sudden, in like the last 2 years, we're seeing, I get, some of them are behavioral dogs. A lot of them are medical dogs because they have so many medical problems, but we'll get really good, like a beautiful dog that's sitting in the shelter that's a French bulldog that people are paying $5,000 for. And somebody did pay $5,000 for it and surrender it to the shelter. And it's crazy because I've never seen so many purebred dogs, like coveted purebred dogs in the shelter. But right now we're seeing that. And that's the problem. I know I'm a long-winded answer, but I think
I love this.
A lot of rescues, and this is not a slight, because everybody is doing really good work. Their hearts are all in the right place. And we did this too. So I'll admit that we did this too. We just attack the symptoms, right? Oh, there's this dog that needs to be rescued. Let's rescue it. Well, yes. But there's so many other things. Like you said, overpopulation. People aren't spaying and neutering their dogs. Some people just don't believe in it, right? It's kind of, old wives' tales or something that they've listened to. But I don't know about where you are, but in Southern California, it is really expensive. It could be $600 or $700 to spay a dog. And again, a lot of people just don't have that. Should they not have a dog? Well, that doesn't seem fair. If they can take care of a dog but can't afford a $600 or $700 spay. So that's some of the things that we do. We try to have spay and neuter clinics and like really help these people who are underserved that want to keep their pet, don't want it to keep getting pregnant, but can't afford a spay. So again, we attack the symptoms, but we also go to the root cause. Same thing with education. We try to really educate people how to walk your dog properly. Your dog should never be in front of you, because then they're in dog behavior world. That means they're in charge. That's why you see so many little dogs barking and lunging and doing all these crazy things, because they think they're having to protect the perimeter because they're in charge,
Hmm.
and what I tell people when I interview them, dogs like people, not every single one of them should be a pack leader, right? We
Hmm.
have leaders and we have, group and team members in our human society. And that's the way it is there too. Not everybody should be a leader because they don't want to, or it's not a good fit. And I think that's the thing that people don't understand. So there's a dog behavior component.
Hmm.
There's sometimes a carelessness or what we call selfishness component. And then I just think that the world we live in right now with everything is so expensive, and it always has been, and it just
Hmm.
keeps getting more expensive. And
Right.
vet care is really hard to find now because,
Hmm.
again, our friend the pandemic, a lot of people didn't come back to work, and so vets can't keep in RVTs or they had to cut their hours, and so
Hmm.
vet care is it's hard, it's more scarce, and it's more expensive than it ever has. So that is a very long-winded answer to your question.
No, I love that. And I like that you guys are like when you can helping with those procedures because I'm thinking like I don't even know here cuz we live in the we're based out of the suburbs of Chicago, so like Chicago's probably like 45 minutes from me. And every dog I've rescued has already been fixed. Like the sanctuary or the rescue does it as soon as they come in, which I think
Mhm.
is great. So it's like maybe that's a privileged answer where I'm like, I don't even know what it is, but and it makes sense, especially with just like vaccinations and I mean a vet, like I go to my vet and it's just $70 to book, and to see, right? So it's like I get it, and I see these like TikToks too and social media things where there's people, homeless people that have these animals for whatever reason they're homeless, but they love their animals. They're like they're like my best friend, and this vet would go and they would do like neighborhood vet visits for the homeless where they could get the dogs to get the vaccination because it's like yeah, not everybody sucks, right? But it's
No.
like just like with the world and like you said with the pandemic and everything super expensive and it's like having that helping hand for just like vaccinations or getting your dog spayed is amazing. And also going back, I was thinking I just saw a post too about never gift a pet or a pet should not be a surprise gift
Yeah.
because like I think about like it was a very planned thing where I'm like okay, gotta get her bed and even like the food, the toys, okay. Um, does my work schedule allow? Because one big thing was like I didn't want her to sit home all day, and I wanted to make sure she got a walk. So planning all of that out, and at that point I was living with my mom. I'm like, okay, so you can walk her in the morning, and then when I get out, like I'll walk her. So it's a planned thing, and it should be exciting. But I get the whole perspective behind like, oh, look at this cute puppy, especially when there's like if you get it for a child and
Right.
a lot of things I hear too is like, oh, we're gonna get a divorce, so the dog will just drop it at the I'll never understand that because it's like people like us look at our animals like you're my family, like you're my child. That's what I say. Like I birthed my dog. It's almost like how I like picture it, like she's my child. Um, so yeah, I think that is wonderful what you guys are doing and it's very interesting. I knew this like in the South was a lot more of an issue in terms of like dogs wandering around and like people just like dropping them off on the side of the highway and like booking it. Not necessarily as bad of an issue here in Illinois, but I mean it happens everywhere.
It
And I've
does.
seen a lot in like Mexico too. There's like dumping grounds that are just known for people that just don't want their dog anymore. It's insane. Which I'm grateful that like organizations like the Little Red Dog exist to help with these issues. I'm just looking at my couple questions I wanted to ask you. So, oh, I always love asking this. Do you have like a memorable rescue or adoption story or something that sticks out over the course of, over 10 years now, that you'd want to share that's like heartwarming, maybe didn't start out that way but ended that way?
Sure. Yeah, there's a couple that always come to mind when anybody asks me that question. And I mean, there's been so many. I could sit here for days and tell you about
Right.
every single one of them because they're all very special to me. But we had this little guy named Turbo, and he was a 6-month-old Shepherd mix. And he was paralyzed. His legs, they had videos of him, and it was very cute. He was in a play group with little dogs, and they were all playing with a ball, and he was dragging himself around to play. And it was very, obviously it was just, it broke my heart, but it was also so endearing because he was just okay, my legs are no longer working. I'm going to go ahead and
Right.
that's what's are great about dogs, right? They don't care. They'll just keep going.
Yeah.
So
Adapt and just
yeah.
keep going. Yeah.
So we rescued him, and there was nothing to do. We could not, he wasn't going to walk again. So we just did a lot of things. He had a chair, but his legs were, even with a chair, his legs would drag, and he would get all these bad cuts, and they get infected. And no matter what we did, we kept, shoes on him and everything. It didn't matter, because he was a young pup, and he just wanted to go. So
Right.
we had several vets that we worked with that we really trusted, that kept saying to us, you should just put him to sleep. And I thought, wow, just for being paralyzed, and he's young. He is a dog that is good with everybody. Like, he will get along with kids and cats and every single dog he ever meets, and every person. He just loves everybody. It's a very rare. People think because of Lassie, I call it the Lassie syndrome, that all dogs are going to be like that, but that's not the case. And Turbo was just a really awesome dog. So we did not put him to sleep, because there was no way we were going to do that. And we had multiple surgeries on his legs, and we did close his wounds, but then, they'd open up again. So we eventually agreed to just have the legs, amputated. So he, had no legs. They weren't working anyway. They really were a detriment to him. And, I've had the same vet. So, well, sometimes that's bad, blah, blah, blah. But it really improved his quality of life. And, I have this video, which I can share with you. If you want, I can send it to you, where, he's like running after a ball, just and he's just going on his two legs. And he has no idea that it's bad or different. He doesn't care, because he's going to just live his best life. And that's what he is. And he's just, he's just amazing. Around that same time, we got a call. We always get calls about this man who had this puppy. I think he had like a litter of puppies, and he sold them.
Right.
There's always, there's stories. Oh, he sold them for drugs. I don't know if that's true or not, but he was selling puppies, and this puppy had something wrong with it. And, I don't know. He was going to kill it, take a shot. We don't know what he was going to do. So we interceded, and we got the puppy. It was a very small puppy, and she had hyperbellocereplasia. And if I'm saying that wrong, I'm sorry, vets all over the world get that wrong. But basically, her cerebellum didn't finish. Forming when she was, a puppy, and so she can't really walk that well. It's very staccato, whatever. And we got her, and she had a really good foster, and another one. We got her a chair, and she started to be able to get around, because she used to bark so much, because she was so frustrated because she couldn't get up and get play with the other dogs. So now she has she's done swim therapy with her owners, and she has her chair. It says Bay Cycle. It's very cute. Her name is Bay. So again, I think about these dogs, and it's just like, if not for us, these would be souls that would be gone.
Right.
We had one more I will talk about, and his name was Taquito. And I do try to refrain from people suck stories all the time, because we do see a lot of that, but I do see a lot of other side, and hopefulness and goodness. And so I do try not to be too jaded, but there are those days. So
100%.
We got a call from a shelter, and this little guy, he was only a year old. He was barely a year old. His name was Taquito, and he was paralyzed because his owner beat him. And he left him on a porch, and the dog had been crying for like 2 days. And finally the neighbors reported, they couldn't take it anymore. So they reported it. This little guy was a mess. I think he had 3 or 4 surgeries. We had to put his spine back together. He had like an FHO surgery. Like, it was pretty bad. But this little 12-pound Chihuahua, who was like a year old, but same thing. We spent a ton of money on him. I mean, luckily people donated, so that was helpful. But, he was incontinent because of his injuries, and he just found the best family. I mean, I have the best pictures of him now, and he just has the best family. And what was so amazing is that the spine surgeon told us, maybe he'll walk, but it was kind of like not going to happen. And he's actually kind of walking around now, running a little bit around. Yeah. And so again, I have a video of that too. And it's just, again, it's like this little guy who suffered so much, and now again has this amazing life. And I think that's I think it's what all of us really just love about rescue is that, redemption thing. Like you see this story and we firmly believe that there's not a dog out there that doesn't deserve a second or maybe even a third chance, depending on what's going on. So
Right. That gives me like the chills in the best way. And
I kind of wanted to talk about the homeless people and dogs, if you don't mind.
yeah, 100%. That's great. Let's do it.
So, you talked about the homeless people and people talking about how they're their best friends, and it's interesting to me. And we've like really studied this a lot, like just internally, not formally
Mhm.
or anything. But the interesting thing about homeless people with their dogs is, for the most part, they are a perfect pack. They're like literally dogs living together, right?
Mhm.
Because they know that's leader. I've seen them come up. This guy had a bicycle and he had like a thing that he was pulling with it, like a cart. There's 5 dogs in there. They didn't try to get out. He stopped. They all got out to go potty because he tells them to. They all got back in when he told them to. I mean, so it's just a different. That's a person who's actually, whether you believe it or not, is doing the right thing with the
Right.
socialization and the bonding and setting himself up as a pack leader. It's just kind of crazy how that is. And also I wanted to just comment, and because we do really believe in giving back to the community, and so that's why we've tried to do so many things with vaccination clinics or whatever. But we did just recently, because now we have the facility, which is helpful. So last year, we were told, I don't even know how we got told. We were told about a family that was living in their car. They lost their home, and it was a man and woman and their 15-year-old daughter and their dog. And so, I mean, that just sounded horrible,
Right.
to us, for all of them. There wasn't anything really I could do for the humans, but they were getting help. But we took their dog Chloe for 6 months. Sorry, 6 months, and she wasn't spayed, so we spayed her. We got her vaccinated, all of that, and like we just were able to keep Chloe. She got walks, she got her human time and yard time and stuff like that. But they were able to keep, when they got on their feet, they came and got their dog. And so that's the thing that I think, again, going back to helping people, sometimes they really do need help. It's not
Mhm.
just being, irresponsible, but they're like, I can't afford this $5,000 surgery. So,
Right.
so
Oh
we were
yeah.
able, they wouldn't have been able to board their dog. They didn't even have a home. They couldn't pay for boarding. So it made us feel really good. And the day that she came and got picked up, it was a big party for everybody, and we were really excited. And again, my point about that is they wanted to keep their dog. But had that somebody not stepped in, they would have probably surrendered her to the shelter. And frankly, she might have been euthanized, because there's so many big dogs right now at the
Mhm.
shelter. No one really wants to adopt. I mean, we don't even get puppies adopted now. They used to go, like, I used to have way more apps than pups. I have pups that we've had for 9 months. They were born in the rescue.
My
We've got
gosh.
a pregnant dog, and they're still been adopted. That's how bad it is right now. There's so many dogs, and there's already too few adopters, and now there's
Mhm.
like only 10% of those adopters. It's just crazy.
When did like when is that shift? How long has that been? Like, would you say in the last couple of years you've seen just like a steady decline of people? I wonder, do you have like a theory as to why that is, or it's just like there's just now so many dogs? I
Well, I think your point earlier about the pandemic, everybody kept saying that, and we were very careful. Even we didn't lower our requirements for adoption. Like, we were able to save more dogs because more people wanted to adopt, which was great. But, we knew that was coming as soon as the travel restrictions were lifted, as soon as people went back to work, that was coming. I guess I just didn't realize the extent of it. So I knew people were getting dogs out of the shelters, but from what I've read now, they were also going to breeders. So breeders were like breeding extra dogs, which we didn't need in the first place.
right.
Um, so I think that's part of it. Make no mistake, pre-pandemic, it was already bad. Like, there were
Mhm.
dogs already being euthanized, good dogs that nobody had room for. But now there's just way too much inventory, and it's across the U.S. Like, we have a partner that we used to, well, we still work with her. She's in Idaho, and it's kind of a shelter slash rescue.
Mhm.
And they just really always like German Shepherds. So we have sent some German Shepherds out there who weren't getting any play here, and they were like immediately adopted. So I've reached out to her a couple of times, like, oh my God, we're so full. See, so she went from wanting to transport in other dogs to, no, we got too many, because people are
Mhm.
just picking them up. So, I don't know why it's so bad, because I would think that more people would have like kept their dogs. But I think, we even get training inquiries. And I can't tell you how many I've seen where this was a pandemic puppy, so we didn't socialize him, and now it's
Mhm.
having a problem.
Yeah,
And, you know, it's hard on the dog because dog is always going to lose, always.
right. So I guess a good question I could ask is like, is there any advice or, from your years that you would give anyone listening on maybe the thought process of buying a dog? Because I know like another thing is like you can adopt a dog and like then they get into a home environment they've never been in and like it's just they have to acclimate and get used to it. And like so many people are like, oh, it's not working, okay, well, back to the shelter. And then this dog has like been surrendered 3 times and now it looks like, well, why would I want to adopt a dog that's been, so
Right.
advice, insight, anything that you can give, I think would be great in that term because it happens so often.
So there's nothing wrong with a rescue dog. There really isn't. What I see when I see a dog in the shelter, I see a dog that was let down by a human in one way or the other. And again, sometimes it's not really the human's fault, but
Right.
the majority of the time, the human didn't do the research like you did, didn't think about vet care, didn't think about getting pet insurance. They were reacting, right? They just
Hmm.
wanted to keep the dog. And I think if you just think about your lifestyle, because every dog needs to be walked. And there are some dogs that I said 30 minutes twice a day, every day. That's the minimum.
Right.
There's other dogs that need a lot more exercise, a lot more structure because they're so energetic. So
Hmm.
think about your energy level, the dog's energy level. Do think about the cost, of vet care, just even upkeep. Well, you said $70 just to walk in the door. They
Hmm.
need to do vaccinations and, hopefully they don't get sick. So
Right.
think about that. And I would say, we have a bunch of like training videos on our YouTube and I know it sounds crazy, but most people don't even know how to properly walk their dog. Remember, I was saying a lot of times you'll see them on these long flexi leashes. They're 6 feet in front of them. And that is not the way to build yourself up as the pack leader. The dog thinks he's in charge and they make stupid decisions, right? Dogs are
Hmm.
like this. They make stupid decisions when they're given, too many options or whatever. So I think that's part of it. Don't buy, if you want a purebred, there's probably in the shelter. Take a look, and I just think do your research. Maybe foster. All rescues, no matter where you are, always need fosters. Maybe try out a dog, and see if it's really something you want to do. Because I've had people do that and they go, oh, some people love it. Some people are like, oh, this is not for me. And if you're going to, don't buy a dog. But if you're going to buy a dog, do not buy a French bulldog. Do not buy an English bulldog because those are the ones that are so expensive. They always end up in the shelter because of medical issues. And then, a lot of times they end up dying because somebody can't afford it or whatever. So, and do your research. They have like a breathing problems. So again, people just don't realize all of the stuff that goes into that when they're breeding the dogs. And there's so many dogs that are dying every day, good dogs. I mean, again, we have 140 of them. Go look at our site.
Yeah.
Um, but just, please don't buy dogs. And that's all I can say. Because to your point, when people say, oh, I got a dog and I had to return it because, it was getting comfortable, whatever. Well, it's getting comfortable because you weren't giving it structure. You weren't giving the proper instructions. And that does take a lot of work. And it
Hmm.
doesn't stop. Now it gets easier down the line, right? Because a dog learns or whatever. But you really need to set them up for success and
Right.
not
Yeah.
hopefully not
My
let them.
dog, it's so funny. She was like, we had her trained, or the shelter actually had her trained at one of like a dog training camp for like leash training. And like, she has this thing where you tell her to place and she'll like stay in her bed, which we'll do when like people come in the door. But like, if I don't keep on her, like I hadn't done the place in like a couple months. Oh, and she's supposed to stay there until I tell her I left to go to the kitchen, came back, she's running around and it's like they try to test you to see, and
Ooh,
sometimes she'll try to crawl off of her bed to see if she's like, are you going to yell at me? I'm technically still laying down. It's they have so much personality and they test you.
they do.
It's like I'm top dog, but if I don't keep her in check, she will. I feel like a lot of dogs are like that. They'll test to see what they can get away with. So
I
it's like consistent.
they're just like having a teenager, and I always, again, when I interview people, I always say, I'm sure you were a great teenager, but I was a big pain in the ass. And so I tested my parents every day,
Yeah.
doing stupid crap. And so,
Yes.
I feel like I didn't have my own kids. So I feel like my dogs are now paying me back for that. Because you're right. They do test you. And, that's just, again, you have to keep up on it. And I hate to always focus on like the downside when I say it's work, whatever. I take my dogs out every day. I take them out when I don't feel well. I take them out on my birthday. I take them out when I go to dinner. I take them out first, then I go to dinner, right? The dogs are pretty. But it's something like often for years, that was the only exercise I got, right? I was so busy just walking my dogs was the exercise I got, which is great. It's a great time to think and just kind of reset, and then you're with your dog, and it's just a really awesome thing. But walk them properly. They should be next to you or behind you, never in front of you.
I always say, because I once again saw this on social media, but ever since I saw this years ago, it's like, let your dog sniff, because like their 20-30 minutes of walking is like your social media scrolling. Like go let them do their thing, sniff around the neighborhood, what's going down with the other dog. Like, and ever since I read that, I'm like, because sometimes, when you're like, I gotta walk the dog and you're like smelling every spot and you're like, okay, like, let's go. I like love you, sniff it. But now I'm just like, okay, you know what? This is your time, right? And
it's like how they're reading the newspaper. They're gathering,
right, yeah, they're like sniffing who peed here. Like, oh, she loves the pine trees because squirrels go up it, so she's got to like stick her head in. And it's so funny because like that's like my priority. I'm like, okay, I can go out, but I got to walk Biscuit first. This is my dog. And the amount of times I'm walking the neighborhood, like if like I'm going out with the girls, like to the club, I'm in like my little cocktail dress, like with a parka over, like walking the dog, because I got to make sure she goes out and has her business done before I go out, because like that's what you do. But it's like so funny seeing me in my Crocs and a cocktail dress with my North Face over it in the winter, like walking my dog. But that's what you do, you just got to do it. Yeah, and because like, yeah, I'm like this. You just got to do it because that's how they go out and see the world. Yeah, they go in the backyard, but like that's their scenery. They don't get to go drive in a car every day and go look at. So
another thing that's really good about them smelling is it burns mental energy, right? And so you're walking, and it's burning physical energy. Them smelling is burning the mental energy. So they're going to be tired when you go, and that's what you want. A tired dog is a good dog. It really is.
Oh yeah. Especially like if like I'm going out, I'm like, okay, let's go out 30-minute walk. And then she is like, I got my little dog camera like on my bed, and I just always check in, and she's just gone, just sleeping, snoring the entire time. And it's a great way to burn energy. So yeah, I'm totally on the same page. And it is a great way to kind of disconnect. Like when I'm done with work, we'll go for the walk, and, we'll go walk around, and I'll just kind of talk to myself in my head.
Exactly.
So I feel like what'd you say?
So it's better than paying for therapy.
Oh, yeah, literally. And the best is like when you're having a bad day, I feel like dogs can just sense your energy. And it's also like, it almost makes it think I'm crying in bed, and then my dog comes up to me. I'm like, oh, I love you so much. Like, thank you. They are like a companion. Like with the hard work, there's so much more payoff in terms of like companionship and like a friend, truly like a part of the family.
Absolutely. So many great things about them. I mean, we know that they lower your blood pressure, when you're petting them. So there's nothing. I think I've had dogs all my life, and like you, my dogs live better than most humans in this world. But they also have to mind. They have to listen. We do place. We still do those spot drills because, we added a Frenchie last year. I'm sorry, the year before last at Christmas time. He's still kind of not getting. He's a one-eyed Frenchie that somebody was surrendering because he had an eye injury. And the shelter that he was going to be surrendered to doesn't take any medical dogs. So they were afraid that he was going to be euthanized. So I didn't have a place for him. So we sent him to the vet. We got his eye, removed. And he ended up in our house and then never left, which is how all my dogs always end up here. But
yeah, that was another thing. I'm like, how do you not come home with the dog every day? Because I am such a sucker. That's how I had a wiener dog that we went to get dog food for, my other dog in a Weimaraner as a kid. We went to get pet food at PetSmart, and they had an adoption day. And it was like, it's so crazy, the saying about like how they pick you, like you don't have a choice when like, it's like, and she sold us, and it was like minus Biscuit, of course she's listening, but it was the best dog. She was the greatest. so much
Right.
personality. And it was like we didn't even go in planning to get another dog. It was just like crazy how everything lined up. Same with the dog I have now. Like it was just like I had a dog lined up I really wanted to meet, and I was like, I really want this dog. I was looking to adopt. Then I just got a random message. I had reached out months prior about her, didn't think anything of it. I never heard anything back. I was like, I'll just go stop and see her and, meet her and see. Immediate. And I was like, I canceled the next show. I was like, no, this is the dog I'm getting. And it's crazy how that works because they really do. It's like you just click and it's such a beautiful thing. And that's how every dog I've had and been adopted is just like, you're like, oh yeah, no, this is the dog for me. I'm going to get you. Come on. And they live better than me,
Yeah.
like in every aspect.
Yeah. So you do end up with more dogs. I have 4 dogs of my own. I have 2 foster dogs here, and Maddie, who's probably here snoring, and then I have another friend here that is from Russia, and he had a bad time of it in Russia, and so when I got him, he just bit everybody. So I worked with him for about a year, well, probably 9 months, and he finally got over all his triggers and everything. So, but again, now I'm like, okay, I don't really want them to go, but does it mean I have 6 dogs? I mean, I have 6 dogs anyway because they're here and I'm feeding them and walking them and everything. But anyway, yeah. You end up with lots of dogs. I wish I could keep them. I wish I could keep more of them, but
Right.
it's a good thing. I think, my husband, for a lot of years kept me, he's like, you're one Steve away from being a hoarder. And I'm like, you're probably right. In a bad way, just like they'll all be taken care of. But yes, there's a lot of dogs. So anyway.
But that's why I'm like, one day I was like, give me a farm, give me all the dogs, and just let me live my little slice of heaven over here. Um,
Absolutely.
Ways people can help out, how people can reach you, things you offer. I don't know if you're doing any fundraisers or anything in terms of donating to you guys, but anything in that regard or anything else you want to cover that we haven't, like the floor is yours.
Thank you. We did just rescue, and we didn't intend to because again, we're full. I keep saying that and we keep getting more dogs, but we did just rescue a mom and 6 puppies, and they were just full of ticks. And I spent about, I don't know how many hours on Saturday picking 250 ticks off of 6 puppies.
My gosh.
And didn't even get to mom that day, but I mean, obviously we were treating them also, so no one thinks that that's all I was doing.
Right.
But anyway, I mean, so yeah, we really need fosters for the puppies. They're honestly too big to be with the mom and at our facility. And they're not fully vaccinated, so I can't really walk them. So we really need fosters for them. And then obviously donations always. We take a lot of medical dogs. We take a lot of senior dogs, and it just costs more, right? A lot of our kitties have a lot of allergies, and they're on Cytopoint shots, which is like almost $200 a shot. So again, any donations, $1 is not too small. We appreciate every single cent. If you're in our area, if you want to foster, always need fosters. If you want to volunteer to walk dogs, because we have a lot of dogs to walk, we love to have people, do that too. But anything. There's so many ways to, I think, help. You could do a fundraiser on, PayPal Facebook for your birthday. So there's a lot of ways to help. And if it's not us, just somebody that you in your area that you can help, because I'm going to tell you, all the rescues would be saying the same thing.
Right.
Everybody needs money, fosters, and volunteers. So
Yes, no money, no mission. That's one thing, is a lot of nonprofits have like this thought process of being scared to ask for money, but it's like, no, we need money to continue our mission. And it's the way of the world. All right, everybody, go ahead and check out the Little Red Dog and all of their information in the description below. PJ, thank you so much for coming on Nonprofit Spotlight.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for having me. And I'll say this, I know Kelly said she donate, and that would be awesome. If you can't donate, just share, just tell people about us, because that's how we get awareness and we can save more lives. And thanks again for having us.
Yes. Bye, guys.